All right, hell yeah. So we're making pretty good progress on the R1 raft. And so this is the width of an I-beam floor. And this is pretty sweet because we have, you know, kind of different places. And it's kind of one of those things where it always finds, you know what I mean, like one location. So that's kind of the location. I set this up to be, so this is the, like right here, this would be the back right corner. Now the back right corner is not my strong side, and I kind of messed that up because I built this upside down. But let's say my strong side was this right side, hell yeah. Our neutral position is going to be right there. And the most important thing is in the cockpit, if I shift forward to that location, it's going to drop the bow. And so, you know what I mean? And just sitting back here is enough leverage in the boat to release all that bow. And so, and this is a huge release on that bow. It makes the effective length of this boat probably too short. But what I didn't want to do was skimp on these sections. I wanted to be very particular about how high the edge angles would get. And so if I'm back here and I shift forward, and then hopefully, though, the thwart would be up here. And so I could even shift to right there, which would release the stern. You know what I mean? And kind of, yeah, and that's I think that's going to be important to R1 kind of freestyle or whatever, is to be able to get a section of the boat out of the water. Okay, so hell yeah. So if this is the strong side, this corner right here is going to be kind of that power corner that releases 3/4. And so what I guess I did is I built in to the floor the ability to release 3/4 even just by sitting over here. You know what I mean? And that's not what my floor does. My floor, you have to pivot onto this, the floor sticks out, and then you have a stair step. So this is simulating a 4-inch floor that's stuck out, and then I'm going to have my surfaces here that will tip, you know what I mean? So this would tip onto a flat surface. Hell yeah. Okay, so this is too rockered, but again, I just wanted to experiment with that because you might as well. You might as well have too big of a rocker and then work your way back. All right, hell yeah. All right, I don't know if you can see too much, but check this out. And so this actually has a keel. And so, you know, my intention was not to do this, kind of like the V rocker. I tested it at the lake where I had 2 kayaks in a V, and I didn't like it, but I didn't like it for the reason that once you were like on this surface, you had no other edge. And so this thing would just tip over. So this is a standalone raft. I would say would not work. You would need this stair step and sponson. Now, I don't think it needs to be that huge. I think you could even have like a, and I'm going to work on a flat stair step, a flat to a taper, or just a heavy taper stair step, or flat here in this middle section of the boat, but then even heavily tapered to simulate a rocker. So that's kind of the objective. But just in the neutral position, it's not too crazy. This was the last thing I did, and this bow definitely needs to, you know, either be longer or reduced, and that's too much. You know what I mean? And, you know what I mean? And this is just the 4-inch raised floor anyway, and then you would have more material. So let's bring it to the raft to kind of show that profile. And this is a little bit like kind of on steroids. You know what I mean? It's too much rocker, but it's just, it was, you know, I definitely just wanted to experiment with tipping onto different sections. And if you can visibly tip the boat into those quadrants, then hell yeah. I actually don't, there's part of me that says this isn't that big of a deal. But then the other part's just like, yeah, that's way too much. But hell yeah, like back here, you know what I mean? Like this doesn't feel like anything. But then, I mean, because this is going to be your neutral surface when you're in the back. And so all of the bow rocker is too much. But it's only too much in this last section. I think even going from this section to that section was exactly what I wanted. This section could be lengthened maybe. But hell yeah. So, anyway. And then the other thing that we did is, if this is simulating the floor, we at least took a foot off of the floor on this side, and then a foot off of the floor on this side. So this effectively, I can make an 8-foot boat. You know, that was definitely, you know, the 10-foot boat. What happens is this floor sticks out too much for the compartment that you're sitting. You can't do a lot of the moves from the back of the boat, especially off the very back. And so that was important to me. And so, hell yeah. And it's just kind of interesting. You can imagine then these tubes would have to match this profile and have to be lower. And I want to get rid of the corners as well. So, like, having this floor, this is the inflatable floor. You know what I mean? Whether it's made out of foam or whatever, it's just simulating that. And, you know, that's a huge amount of rocker. But it's not that big of a deal. Because, like I said, when you sit in the boat, it's going to look like this. And then, like, hey, this stern rocker is hardly anything. And let's say you were sitting back here. You know what I mean? Maybe this is your flat surface. Well, this might be a pretty decent stern to play around with. You know what I mean? Maybe this is what you want. So that was the other objective, is to make this boat as asymmetrical as possible, to have a power face and then like a secondary surface just if you were in this corner. You know what I mean? So this is the main back corner, and this would be the offside back corner. This would be driving up, you know, to the bow on your main side, and this would be crossing over, you know, paddling the bow on your offside. And so, yeah, so even though it's extreme, there's elements of it, like I don't think you can take the whole look of it all in one go, because it's effectively like half boats. Like you're either in the back, and then everything is released off the front, or you drop forward, and then you effectively get onto this surface, and then the back is sticking up that much. And that was kind of fascinating to me, to be like, hey, do you want like all that leverage? I mean, just the fact that the stern, if you were in the bow, the stern would be sticking up that much, that would be helpful to actually leverage you back down. And then it's just kind of interesting, is if this was neutral, is this a long enough surface to even get momentum? And then the other thing was, if you do lay it over onto edge, you know what I mean, on these tubes, are you going to have enough of a flat surface? You know what I mean? So that was the other thing, is what is that outside tube going to look like? Because, yeah, I think you see that. But I think mine, so if I just had this to here, and then I didn't have this location, you know, to even kind of flatten this out, which I think I'll do. I think I'll, yeah, that would actually make sense. Because if this is the last pivot, to try to get this to be a smooth surface to there. So maybe raise this up a little bit, and then maybe it won't look so crazy. But hell yeah. Because that was the other thing. I mean, if I'm going to talk about everything, getting rid of these corners. In the R1 boat, these corners are, you know, what causes a lot of issue in a wide raft. They just get in the way. Even if you are... Yeah, so yeah, it's kind of interesting. And it's when you lay those corners in, man, they just cause havoc. And so that's the other objective, is to, on this, like, hey, this is pretty flush with the back of the boat, where I at least want this 4-inch drop, and then I want it to come flat, but then potentially remove material. So if I do come out flat for a little bit, then taper, or just pick a location here and then taper. The other thing about this design is I have made this to be the same width as the I-beam floor, but what I want to eliminate is about 5 inches, 4 to 5 inches. So like from here to there, I want to eliminate that, that width. And so what that allows is this to come in and then either have a flat surface or a tapered surface, and then make up this 5 inches potentially on the upside of this tube. So if I can get rid of these corners, then I can actually have a secondary stability, an extreme edge when leaning and high siding. All right, so I think we're done with this video. Thanks for joining me. Booyah.